Welcome to the wonderful world of wine. We are your hosts, Mark Lenzi and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. Our program is supported by Franklin Public Radio, and you can find us online at thewww.wine. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the wonderful world of wine. How are you, Kim?
I'm doing great, Mark. How about yourself?
Everything is great. Football season has started, so I'm a happy camper now. Once again, we have a very special guest with us, Kim. We have Maryse Chevriere.
Maryse
How are
Chevriere,
you,
yep.
Maryse? Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I'm well, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. I just want to introduce to our listeners, you are a certified sommelier, an illustrator, an author, and a James Beard Award winner. So welcome. First, I'd like you to tell the listeners a little bit about your wine background so they get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working in wine, since probably about 2012. I started off my career in like food and beverage journalism and was always interested in that. And then I had an assignment to go write about this wine bar in New York. I was living in New York City at the time. It's called Terroir, which is still open and exists, and I think is one of the best wine bars in the world. But I had an assignment to write about a bartender that worked there, and I thought, my God, this guy has the coolest job ever. And I think within maybe like less than a year, 6 months, I kind of finagled my way into a job there with not nearly enough experience, but it was like the best jumping off ground to kind of like learning about everything wine, and especially like out of the box wine world. And then from there, I went and did a harvest in Alsace. I moved to San Francisco and worked in wine, a couple restaurants, and ran a program out there. And then eventually moved back to Boston, where I worked at Uni. And now I'm on the other end of things, working for a company called MS Walker, doing wine sales. So trying to get like the full perspective of the wine world, which has been really great.
Yeah, I was going to say you've sort of touched on so many different parts of the industry. You've got the restaurant, behind the bar, certified som, you did a harvest. Now you're working wholesale. It's got to get you a retail job and you're.
Actually, I forgot. I have done that. It's terrible. I like kind of was just all, not terrible, but like definitely all over the map trying to see what pieces fit and what made the most sense.
I think it's a common story for a lot of us in the industry when I like to tell people that it's like we don't leave the industry, we just sort of bounce around to different jobs all within it. And so it's a pretty small world. So
it really is. It really is. But it's nice because you learn something from each one. They're totally different perspectives, and like at different points in your life, different things make sense. And I've had fun doing all of it.
You talked about perspectives working in New York, San Francisco, Boston. What did you notice for trends that seemed different in all the areas? Did you notice major differences in wine trends?
I mean, for me, going to California was such a shock to the system, in that like where I grew up in wine, I would say like I was a little of the like, oh, California is so old school, and like classic California cab and Chardonnay, and like a little up my nose about it. But you go there and you realize there's so much more that like we weren't getting on the East Coast. There's so much cool stuff, people doing like really experimental things, and there's more that I had access to there that was really exciting. So that was definitely something coming from California that was super interesting, or going to California that was an interesting surprise.
And New York had better selection, you think, than Boston, or?
I mean, it's tough. I think there's definitely like a wider range of, I'd say, demand and access, certainly in New York. I mean, you definitely get a lot of great stuff in Boston too, but like I think New York still has that like buying power. Like the range of restaurants that are there too, I think can demand a little bit more, maybe. And also I'm speaking from like almost over a decade ago, but it does feel like in New York you can kind of get everything, and they still have a big pull.
You have a lot of this type of experience in the industry, sort of this boots on the ground, working with wine, with beverage, but you are well known for your writing and also your illustrating. So I want to hear a little bit about your illustrations, your art, and the humor side of it, which is what has gotten you a lot of recognition.
Yes, my favorite happy accident. I mean, truly, I was like, the story is kind of basically, I was studying for my certified som test. I was living in San Francisco Francisco. I didn't know a lot of people. And I was, like having some wine and making flashcards and looking at Instagram instead of making flashcards. And I saw a description that I really liked. And I was just like, oh, like it was just so like visually evocative. I was like, I wonder what it looks like if I drew this, and it was around the time also that the first Psalm documentary had come out, and like that was very big and buzzy. And I was just like, this would be really fun. And I wonder if I could, if I put this out there, would this have any interest, getting attention? And I think it was a good way for me to connect with people in wine that I feel like I probably didn't have any business being connected with. I could, like, the tasting note was from Levi Dalton. I was like, well, no connection to this very, very important wine figure. But I can do a little drawing of his tasting note that I thought was so cool. And so it kind of just snowballed from there, and poking a lot of fun at like myself and my peers and the way we talk, but there's also no way of avoiding the way we talk.
It's true. It's true. It's very refreshing to see a little bit of humor injected into the things that we do in the wine world, because from an outsider's perspective, you're right. It's this weird way of talking about wine and the descriptions that we use, because that's our language and that's how we communicate with each other. But you take it from an outside perspective and it's like, what the heck are they talking about? So it is nice to see, people in the wine world sort of, we're poking fun at ourselves, like you said.
Yeah, you need to. I mean, I think like that's like its biggest problem, is taking itself too seriously, but also like it deserves to be taken seriously, but it has this perception that is a barrier of it just being like, oh, I can't get into this. I don't know how to talk. That being said, though, I mean, what industry doesn't have its own like lingo and slang, but it really affects wine, I think, in like the worst way.
And I've always wondered why that is. Like, we don't give hard time to surgeons for speaking in medical terminology to each other. And yet we try to talk about, as your Instagram page is called, Fresh Cut Garden Hose. And we get like read the riot act. It's like, well, why?
Yeah. And people feel very comfortable talking about like food descriptions too, which, you can definitely get pretty elaborate and extreme and certainly very personal with that too. But I think with food, it's a little bit easier to be like, this is a texture. I recognize that this is a different texture than something else. Whereas if you're talking about texture in wine, it's very abstract and hard to explain, even though it's very important and definitely exists.
Do you think it's that abstract nature of talking about wine that makes it be confusing? I don't even know how to.
So, and I feel like it's hard to have like equal frames of reference for people, like if I'm having a sauce and it's creamy, like you're sitting next to me, you're going to experience the same thing. But with wine, I don't know that it translates the same way. So I think it's tough in that regard, but I also don't know that like people are coming to wine to talk about it in that way. They kind of just want to have it as like something fun that's maybe part of the background, that's part of, you're hanging out with friends over a meal or what have you. Like it can bog it down if you're trying to get a little too nerdy with it.
Yeah, the difference between drinking and tasting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So your illustrations led to the 2016 James Beard Award for humor.
Yes.
And those illustrations, I believe, were in Food and Wine and Bon Appetit. You had your work published in some magazines. So I had to ask you, you called yourself the drunk doodler. Is that correct?
Yes.
So your illustrations, they show like the wine profiles. A while back, I saw a woman, I think she was from England, who was a chocolate taster. And she would do illustrations of tasting chocolate in color. So I was wondering, when you're thinking of an illustration, are you thinking is your mind thinking color? Is your mind thinking flavor? Or how do you come up with the illustration?
Well, I think originally it was like, if I took what this tasting note says, like literally, if I made it look like that, like, would that look funny? And it kind of like spawned off of that. I mean, illustrator, I do this thing and I think I do it well, but it's like one thing that I do. I'm not like sitting here like able to paint or, do beautiful portraits or anything like that. They're
So
just
you
like,
had no art background at all? It's just
I mean, no, I was
literally a
always
doodler.
kind of like a doodler, and I, took art classes maybe in like high school and maybe a little bit younger than that and stuff. But it's very simple kind of illustrations. But I try and look for just like, yeah, like if you're saying this to me, I'm trying to think of a good example, but if you're saying this tasting note to me, what would it look like visually? Would that be kind of funny as like a literal representation?
And some of them are really funny. Like I was looking through some of your older ones on Instagram, and there was one with, I think it was confused blackberries.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Like question marks over
I,
there.
I think my favorite one was bag of rocks.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
I'm like, I laughed out loud.
The credit really goes to like the tasters, the people that are providing the notes, because they come up with some things, and like I used to really try and like just find the most outlandish ones, and then more recently started looking for ones that are maybe more simple and they're actually like a term that multiple people would use, like on the nose is something everybody uses, but like it looks funny if you have like 10 times of fruits and non-fruits and whatever it is like perched up on your nose.
I'm glad Kim brought up an example because I had one I
Yeah.
have to ask you about. You recently posted one saying all Italian wines taste like pasta water. So I have to ask. So now it's this image of a glass with pasta sitting on top. So
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you expect if someone sees that and they're not a wine geek like us and just a regular wine drinker like some of our listeners out there? They see this statement that Italian wines, I think you said, did you say Italian white wines or all Italian wines or Italian white wine? I forget how you worded it.
Well, that's the thing. So it's not my tasting note, but
I'm just curious
I
how
don't
you
remember.
were like,
I
what are
saw
you
that one,
trying
but
to
I don't remember.
What are you trying to get are you trying to get feedback or actual? I'm just trying to think how you're thinking when you create something like that.
I mean, I'm just looking for something that sparks my imagination. I saw that I came across that tasting note. I forget who had posted it on Instagram, and I thought I think it was on Instagram, or maybe it was even forget where I'd seen it, but I thought that's just really funny, and I know I can draw that, and I think that would just resonate with people. So I'm not trying to like necessarily make a commentary on the wine that's somebody else's commentary on the wine, but I think for me, I hope that people look at it and it just like makes them laugh, makes them think of Italian, of wine, sorry, just like a little bit more relatable, or gets them thinking about wine maybe they weren't.
Yeah, get you thinking for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, oh God, when I was like first starting out, I had a boss too, and my family is French, and so I came from a very French wine drinking family. And so I always used to say too with him, we would have like pre-shift and we would try an Italian wine. I'm like, I don't know, this all kind of like smells the same.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very uninformed thing to say. But when I saw that, it made me think about that memory and laugh too. So I don't want
Well,
anybody to like take the drawing and think like this is an opinion to have about whatever wine's being discussed, but maybe just something to bring them closer to having conversations about wine or thinking about wine would be great.
yeah, it gets you thinking differently. Like I said before, I
Yeah.
saw someone thinking in a note in colors, and I've seen
Yeah.
it. People do tasting notes in emojis. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah, I
doing
like that
tasting
too.
notes in illustration, and it's just a different perspective on how you should look at that wine. So I think it's good for wine education. I think it's good for wine geeks, and I think it's good for people who don't even understand wine to get them more interested in
Yeah.
wine.
Yeah, I was going to say the approachability of it
Yeah.
because, when you can make somebody laugh, you take away a lot of the pretension. But I would hazard a guess that most people know what pasta water at least smells
Right.
like.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and it's about like expanding vocabulary, because I think there is like, you think, well, you need to talk about wine in certain ways. And obviously, like going through like the Guildson program, it's like this is how you taste and this is how you talk about it. But when I was selling wine like on the floor or wherever, it's like I want to talk about maybe more about the personality of wine. I thought that was easier for people to relate to, or my perception of a wine's personality, than just like, oh, it tastes like citrus and green apple and whatever, because it's, while it might be accurate, I don't know that it's always like as exciting and as easy to like relate to.
You're listening to The Wonderful World of Wine, and we are your hosts, Mark and Kim. You can find us at thewww.wine. We are supported by Franklin Public Radio, and you can find us on social media at The Wonderful World of Wine. Our special guest today is Maryse Chevriere. She is an illustrator, writer, sommelier, and you can find her on Instagram at Fresh Cut Garden Hose. Welcome back to The Wonderful World of Wine. We are here with our special guest, Maryse, and we were just talking about your illustrations and how you bring fun and humor to the conversation about wine. And we know that you're an illustrator, but you are also a writer. So you had told us that you have a book coming out, and I would love to hear what the book is all about.
Yes, so I have a book coming out it should be July of next year. It's called How to Sound Wine Smart, and it's basically an illustrated glossary of wine terms. So taking a lot of what you see on the Instagram page, but then expanding it to other terms that I haven't covered before, and breaking it down in, I think, an interesting way. So like we were talking about before about, texture is really hard to describe. So there's a chapter on texture, there's a chapter on aroma, one dedicated to acidity and all the different words we will use that mean the same thing essentially for like a wine with high acidity and things like that. And then it has, like little breakouts. It's not exactly a 101 book, but it has some kind of like 101 things that you might need to know, and drinking games, and just hopefully a fun wine reference book that is a little bit different than something that's out there.
I wanted to ask you about your first book, Maryse, the Grasping the Grape.
Yes.
In the book, you say right away how you got into wine, and you said very, very reluctantly.
Yeah.
Can you talk to the listeners, like how does someone who starts in wine and seems like nervous or not really liking it, and then you go in to become an author and an award-winning illustrator?
Yeah, I mean, I was very intimidated. I wasn't that late into the game, but I felt like I was a little late into it. And so I just did a lot of, I was lucky to work at some really wonderful places that had great educational programs, and that helped a lot. But, I found that like studying for my test and doing all these things helped me learn about wine, and become more comfortable with it. And through that, and I think a constant desire to want to make people that were uncomfortable, like maybe I was, feel less intimidated about wine, that kind of spiraled into obviously the drawing, and then, the book as well.
So the book was focused on grapes. Did you feel that was something when you started in wine that you wanted to focus on first, and you thought that was a good starting point for people who wanted to get into wine?
I think it was an easy touch point. Yeah, just to make sure you're familiar with the different grape varietals, because from there it leads into conversations about, where do you find these grapes, which regions, what do you need to know about the regions, how do they compare to others? And I think, I don't think you can have a conversation, without that being a big part of it, conversation about wine. That makes sense.
So I was going to ask how you have felt your Instagram page has kind of made connections with people who are not everyday wine drinkers, or maybe who didn't have a whole lot of wine knowledge beforehand. Do you feel like you have been able to enlighten people and get them to understand a little bit more about wine by using your particular brand of sort of education, humor, lightheartedness, art?
I mean, I think so. I hope so. I certainly, like, I'm friends with a lot of people that aren't, big wine drinkers, and they'll say, well, I don't really know what this means, or I don't know if I totally get it, but, it made me laugh, and I really enjoyed it. And so for me, that's definitely a win. I don't know necessarily if people are taking like big educational like chunks out of it, but that's kind of my hope, like with the new book, that like there's more of a translation there between like, hey, this is something you can like practically use, but it doesn't feel like a school book either. And if not, at the very least, you'll have like some funny drawings to look at.
And Maryse, I have to ask you, in the book, you have beautiful illustrations, but you used another illustrator in the book. What was at the time you were a James Beard Award winning illustrator, and you went to someone else? Was she a role model to you, or what was the
No,
reasoning behind that?
the illustrator that I was hooked up with was wonderful. I
Why
didn't
didn't you
know.
want to tackle it yourself? I'm
We
just,
talked about it, but honestly, because I feel like the illustrations are so tied to like the specific thing of talking about the tasting notes, I really wanted to hold out to be able to do the book that I ended up doing, and use those illustrations for like what they're known for, or what they've become known for, which is the tasting notes. So I thought this, yeah, I didn't want to give it away for that, and I thought somebody else would be better suited to kind of do more general illustrations.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting approach, like a non-selfish
Yeah.
thing is a way of looking
I,
at it.
yeah, maybe in a way. I mean, I really, and I've been wanting to do this book about the, like, that relates to the tasting notes. Like, I mean, like from the beginning. So this is like an 8-year like journey for me to get to this point. But I just kind of, I thought it should stay connected and true to like what the original project was.
So the new book is your illustrations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great, great.
Yeah, but she did a great job. I mean, she came together with some things that were like super, super cool. The illustrator for Grasping the Grape.
Yeah, it was, everything coincided to what you were saying,
Yeah.
it was good. One of the chapters in the book, you talked about rosé. Kim and
Mhm.
I always talk to the listeners about rosé, and you said rosés can't age. And this is something
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of people, I think, are afraid to tell people, especially
Totally.
newer people getting into wine. So can you just explain to our listeners that there really is no rosé season and your thoughts on rosé?
Yeah, I mean, I love rosé. When I was working in a tasting menu restaurant, it was one of my favorite kind of like hat tricks to pull out for pairings because it's so versatile. You think you get like white wine acidity, the red wine aromas and flavors. So I think it's incredible in that way. I'm also a big proponent of like drinking rosé when it's cold outside. I also like drinking like a pina colada when it's snowing outside. It just, something that's like referential to warmer times, I think is really nice too. And then rosé just being something that like, yeah, it doesn't have to be this drink that's only like I can only drink it from the most recent vintage. Wine is famously tough with hard and fast rules. So I wouldn't say like you want to age every rosé that you find, but there are definitely ones that are from grapes that are more structured, from regions that, design it to be so, but that can be aged and that can be much more like, quote unquote, serious rosés that can stand up to food in a really nice way.
And you also had another chapter, good advice on becoming a better shopper. I love this when I read this
Okay.
advice in books. And you talked about seek a good local shop. And
Yes.
you being in sales and wine shopper yourself, do you see shopping options like more or less where people are finding good places to shop? Do you know what I'm saying? People going out to liquor stores or supermarkets in our
Yeah.
area and not really getting that help that they need.
Uh, Sorry, so make sure I understand the question correctly. Like, do I think like there are a lot of like a good amount of wine shops, like good wine shops out
Not
there?
not wine shops as much as your tip was to seek shops that can help you with the
Yes.
wine. So
Yeah.
when you are going around to places that sell wine, do you see that help being offered most of the time, or is it less and less?
I see it being offered, but I think people are intimidated to ask.
So what's a tip that you would give our listeners for shopping for wine?
I think it's important to like set the scene and set expectations and then also be open. I think when I was working in retail, it was a lot of, well, I'll just look, kind of want this familiar, I'll go with this thing because I know I like it. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to be open, important to be honest about like what you're looking for and what your budget is. I think it's fun if you can say like, hey, I'm just looking for something to like pound on the patio with my girlfriends, or this is a gift my boss likes X, Y, and Z. And I don't want to spend more than whatever. I think that's really helpful. The other thing too, take advantage of tastings. Like go and try stuff as much as possible because if it's free, great. If not, it's not going to cost much. And then you're talking to either the very knowledgeable staff, you're talking to the representatives who have a lot of knowledge, or sometimes you're even talking to the winemakers. And that's a great way if you're like, well, I don't want to buy a bottle and then I don't actually like it. And that's annoying that I spent $15 on a bottle. Like then you can go and try it and be like, oh, hey, I actually like this. Like maybe I will try this this Albarino instead of getting my usual Sauv Blanc. And I think that's really helpful.
It does seem to be a common thing that we hear with the almost like getting over the fear factor of trying something new.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think because wine can be so difficult to understand because there's so much variety and there's this is like weird technical language that we use that it's, can be kind of scary for people to go out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like that thing too where, people say, yeah, I don't like this food, but maybe you haven't liked a way you've tried it in the right way yet. It's like I don't like Brussels sprouts, but when you try Brussels sprouts with bacon, then you'll love it. Like if you say you hate like a grape categorically, like saying I hate Chardonnay categorically, you're going to miss out on a lot of great stuff. And I guarantee that that you can find a Chardonnay that you like. Like the first place I worked, Terroir Wine Bar, they did Summer of Riesling. They still do Summer of Riesling. Every white wine by the glass, and it was like 25 white wine or 25 glasses. Were all Riesling, and you'd have to find something that would satisfy the Chardonnay drinker, the Sauv Blanc drinker, the whatever. And you can do it. You just have to be open.
Yeah, Riesling definitely seems to be one of those great varieties that people are like, oh, I hate that. I'm like, no. It's like, try this one.
Poor Riesling. Yeah, like in America, it's just people are just like, no, this is what it is. And I understand there are reasons where that comes from, but it's such a great wine.
Another great chapter in the book, you talked about labels, wine labels, and Kim and I are big wine label geeks, and we always mention points to our listeners. One of the things you mentioned that Kim highlights a lot on the show is to look at the importer. You like a wine, turn the label over, see who's importing that wine, and then chances are you'll probably like something else they import because the same person is probably tasting that wine that's bringing it into the country. So can you explain a little bit of that to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's basically like you found a reviewer that you really like and you will trust they say it's good, you trust it because you've had 3 things from them and you know that their ideas about quality, their taste preferences, their philosophical preferences align with your own. So that I think too, while shopping is like the most helpful thing. And I do it all the time too. The wine world is vast. There's plenty that I don't know that I haven't tasted. And if I'm searching around, I'm like, do I think I'll like this? And I flip over and like look at seeing who imports it. Like, oh yeah, okay. Like even if I don't end up liking the wine, like I'll know that like I have a feeling of like trust from going with an importer that I know.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah. Sometimes I tell people it's like if you get a good book recommendation from somebody and then you find out that you have many books in common, then you've got like that feeling of maybe not safety, but like reliability. And that is one of the things that I feel like looking for the importer. If you know that you've liked other things from that person, it kind of gives you that reliability.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like a check mark kind of like, like I know we're probably on the same page here, which is great.
The last thing I wanted to ask you, Maryse, is when you create an illustration, have you ever tried, with such an AI world now, it's so easy to make yourself sound whatever you want to get, right? So, but they also can create images. Have you ever tried putting in what you have done and see what AI creates to see if
I haven't, but that's a great point. I definitely would be curious to see what they would come up with. I'm actually pretty technologically like lame.
Yeah. Well, after we're done, we'll all just try creating an image of the Italian wine pasta water.
Right.
I should see. I should do like I should put it up on Instagram like for like drawings that I have. Like this is what I did. This is what AI did.
Yeah.
Have people vote. What do you like better?
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
That would be funny.
It's really, dominating because I think a lot of people now, you people say, well, I can't create a tasting note. Or they're drawing a blank. They can just put in AI, tell me what this wine tastes like, and it's going to come up with something. So, I think there's good things and bad things about AI, but I was just curious the angle of comparison. So
I love that.
Our listeners can look for that, right? You're going to do something on.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to do it. It'll be a little homework for me. I think that is so fun because I think about it only in like if I'm trying to maybe make an email sound better, I would use AI for that, but I hadn't thought about it in terms of the visual component that they do author too.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever gotten upset with you about using their tasting note and then turning it into an illustration?
No, thankfully.
Oh, good.
Yeah, or if they have, they haven't said it. Most of the time they're like, oh yeah, I got the fresh cut garden hose treatment, which is a really huge compliment to me, and is always really nice to hear. But yeah, nobody's gotten upset with how it's been done yet. I did have
Good.
I did have somebody tell me that I like interpreted it wrong.
Oh.
And so I like redid it. But it
Did
was
you
more
feel
like,
you did it wrong?
what's that?
Did you feel that you did it wrong?
There were two ways to take what was being said. There was like a PG way and an R-rated way. And I did the PG way first, and they were like, that's what so and so meant. And I was like, okay, all right, sure.
That's
So
very funny.
and posted it up again right
Still
after.
talking about a wine tasting note, correct?
Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, I'll tell you, it was motorboating something.
Wow. Wow.
Like I think it was like a potted jam, motorboating a potted jam, and so I
Oh boy.
did it another way.
Great. So our listeners can find your current book, Grasping the Grape. It's out there. I got my copy. It's a
Awesome.
what size would you say the book? It's not like it's one of those things you order a book, you see it online, and then it comes. I had like a mini
Yes.
version. Is that
Yeah,
did
it's
you
small.
purposely make it a smaller size?
Yeah, I think so. It would be like
It's not quite pocket size. It's a little bit bigger than
it's
that.
not quite pocket size, but it's definitely like
It's convenient beach
small,
size.
exactly, small reference size.
It's fun sized.
Yeah. So our listeners, please grab that, and we look forward to your new book when it comes out. And for our listeners, follow at Fresh Cut Garden Hose is her Instagram page. So keep a lookout for that. So Maryse,
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you. If I'm always open, if people want to submit, send me messages of tasting notes. That's the best for me. So if anybody wants to see a tasting note of theirs illustrated, you can feel free to
Fantastic.
send them to me.
I'm going to take you up on that for some shelf talkers.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you for listening to The Wonderful World of Wine today. We've been your hosts, Mark Lenzi and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. Today, our special guest has been Maryse Chevriere, and you can find her at her Instagram page at Fresh Cut Garden Hose. Her website is fcghstudio.com. You can find us on our website, thewww.wine. Our program is supported by Franklin Public Radio. You can find all our past episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes. And we are on all social media, The Wonderful World of Wine. Cheers.
Cheers.
Wine, wine.